I want to introduce someone to you that also is a 100,000 Poets original. She studied at the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal, the Sadie Bronfman Center for the Arts. She received a BFA with distinction at Concordia University. She's a painter and a visual artist. She's prolific in creating bodies of work in traditional and non-traditional art forms. In fact, tonight, she created a video, an art video for us. Unfortunately, the screen is in the back, so you have to see it in the back as she's speaking. If you don't want to look at her, you can look in the back at the screen. We encourage it because she worked really hard on it. We actually have something in common. We both belong to a collective, an international collective called A Book About Death, dealing with death and life. And it's all visual art. And we were very fortunate to actually have an exhibit with Yoko Ono in 2009 in New York. So you can imagine that when we put that on our CV, it looks really good. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you, Susan Shulman.
Yeah.
Okay, so as much as I'd like you to look at me, I would much prefer if you look at the screen behind. And I can't see anybody, so I hope you are going to do that. This is an excerpt from the NFB production, Irving Layton Observed. I have a feeling that artists are what the white mice used to be to the miners. Remember, the miners would go down and they'd have mice because the mice could smell the gas, the pollution, and warn the miners, danger, danger, get out. And of course now they have improved technology, so they don't have to use white mice. But I have a feeling that the functions of the artist is very similar to those white mice of the 19th century. They're there to warn us that there are pollutants in the atmosphere that are dangerous to the human species, dangerous to the human soul, if not the human body. Artists are here to warn us about the dangers to the human soul. And here's my take, inspired by poet Irving Layton and mice. Je suis souris. Artists, musicians, poets, writers, performers have always predicted perils. They are the true soothsayers of our society, illuminated through time with the gifts of warning and courage. Artistic viewpoints, like the lives of those mice, have led to imprisonment and death. Listen, artists are so passionate about the need to express themselves, no matter the outcome, no matter what part of the world they dream in, or how much money they have, using their talent to imagine something that has never yet been created. They are true and authentic, driven by the craft, because it's a calling. Artists tell it like it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Many times the mice give birth to exquisite music, poetry, dance, art, photography that brings tears to the eyes of the viewers. Mice capturing the essence of life, magic, warming our hearts, elating our spirit, and caressing our souls. And sometimes, yes, most times, as we have seen so often, it is a warning to our society, and danger, danger, Will Robinson. It is now just the minds that are toxic. The artists' minds are telling us to open our eyes to a different type of passion and pollution and change. Je suis Souris, je suis Charlie, je suis Boris. Okay, Guitar Women Blues. Never love a guitar blues woman. She loves her axe more than she can love her man. She picks and plucks and tingles its chords as she grips its neck, strumming and stroking the G notes, cranking up the reverb, swaying her strong legs, preparing her flexed body for her peak performance, grinding herself into the precise angle, moving her body in sync with her instrument of desire. The amp drowning out the outside world of rain while she thunders her riffs, sliding her powerful fingers along the embossed frets and massaging her whammy bar, adding just a little more pressure and pleasure, while her forearm glides repeatedly against the slippery, iconic sunburst finish, feeling her torso vibrating from the ear-pounding speakers. She closes her eyes, mumbling and moaning and moaning and mumbling into the abyss as her right thumb and finger increases the speed and intensity of her progression. She's on fire, smoking and shredding her notes, bending and slurring, packing the unbeatable air. She intuitively adjusts the knobs to that perfect pitch, losing herself in the purple haze of rhapsody, triggering a succession of spasms. Her eyes flutter open. A crimson craze from her face starts to fade away as she slowly recognizes him in the hallway smiling at her, her fender strapped around her ripped t-shirt, and the hum of the amp lingering on. She barely whispers in a raspy voice, "Hey man, you been watching long?" As she guilelessly grabs an embroidered hanky and starts to polish her red shiny straps. "Right, yeah, babe. Never loved guitar blues." Let's see. Okay. From the earliest age, as I remember, is fishing and scales. When I reflect upon the scales, I am flooded with kaleidoscopic visions, memories of how these iridescent jewels would adhere to my skin, how gingerly I would pick them off my body and clothes, unaware of anything else in my vicinity, except these mysterious flickering shapes. How sometimes I would stick them on my fingernails and watch them sparkle in the air as I waved around and skipped along the shoreline. How delicately I would hold these shiny treasures between my tiny thumb and forefinger and gaze with my eyes squinting at their magnificent hues reflected against the sky. How silently I would gaze and slide my nails along their glaze and flip them into the palms, mesmerized by each sparkling colored chip. Dad was my gladiator with his weighted fishing gear, crisscrossed around his muscular body, metal minnow cans, hooks, knives, lures, rods, cases, nets, all the weaponry required for combat. The determined fish wore their armored scales to go into battle. It was a fair fight. I knew that these underwater creatures loved my father and would have jumped up just to touch his soul with their psychedelic flickering fins. Their scales glittered in the rays of the sun, reflected along the mirrored blue wavy water. My dad was rigid on the outside, very soft and sensitive on the inside, like the fish he loved to be among. My scales of love are shiny, sticky, brilliant, iridescent, see-through, rainbows of colors shimmering along my sun-tanned arms and legs. Polished, bright, sparkling, luminous, incandescent, radiant, eclectic, intense, prismatic, vivid, mind-blowing, phosphorescent, intense, radiant, aglow, pure, opalescent, rich, electric blue, vivacious orange, and rebellious hot red. My scales of love are my colors. My scales of love are my art. My scales of love are my dad. I am scales of love. Merci.